Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, where I cover vampires, werewolves, and other supernatural creatures. I've covered a lot of Underworld on this channel. Celine's full timeline, Victor, Marcus, Tanis, all the species, but one thing I've always wanted to cover but never got around to was the third vampire elder, Amelia. She was unfortunately killed in the first movie, and I don't think she ever spoke a single word on screen. However, she was extremely important to the vampire world. Let's talk about the vampire elder Amelia, her secret son, and everything we know about her story. Before we get into Underworld, this video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Most of you probably know what a VPN is by now, and it's one of the most helpful tools I use on a daily basis. A VPN helps mask your IP address and encrypt your data so your identity, location, and activity are hidden. This keeps your information safe, but can also allow you to appear as if you're somewhere else. The best example of this is using Surfshark to gain access to a whole new library of movies and TV, which I do quite often. Netflix is known for having amazing movies, but they're only available in certain countries. Want to watch Django Unchained, Inglourious Bastards, Van Helsing, or Shawshank Redemption? Well, just switch your location to Canada. With Surfshark, no customer logs are kept. They have 24/7 customer support, and my favorite part, unlimited devices. So you can use your Surfshark account across all your devices like desktops, laptops, tablets, mobile devices, and more for one price. Surfshark also has an antivirus with a lot of great features. They have real-time protection that will notify you if you download dangerous files or apps, scan your device, webcam protection, and more. Secure your privacy and try Surfshark now. If you use my code LAWLENS, you'll get 4 extra months of Surfshark free. There's zero reason not to try because they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Use my code LAWLENS at surfshark.com. The link will be in the description below. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring the video.
We must move quickly before they turn.
The story of Amelia begins with the first vampire and werewolf, Marcus and William. William was an uncontrollable beast. He was in a constant feral rage, attacking and subsequently turning everything in sight. This breed of werewolf is not like the Lycans we know from later movies. They can never take their human form again and are feral like William. Around the 5th or 6th century, this werewolf infection was spreading like the plague, overtaking entire villages. This was not only a danger to vampires, but the entire human population as well. Marcus, the first vampire, still cares for his brother, so he wanted to capture him, but it was nearly impossible. Marcus needed help, so he approached the dying warlord Victor. Marcus offered him an escape from death, and in exchange, he would provide his army of soldiers and expertise. Victor agrees, and him, along with his entire army, are turned into vampires in order to help get the werewolf problem under control. These would probably be considered the first death dealers. Also, shortly after Victor, Amelia is turned as well. It's not known exactly who she was before being turned, but presumably she was a great warrior, possibly a warlord like Victor. So by the mid-6th century, all 3 elders have been established. When each elder is in power, they have control over all covens. However, it seems Marcus and Victor preferred to reside in the Old World coven. Amelia, on the other hand, would go on to found the Eastern coven sometime in the 6th century. We know that's how old it is because in Blood Wars, a vampire says the Eastern coven has held for 15 centuries. So this coven is pretty much the same age as the Old World coven. Not long after, Amelia would go on to found the Nordic coven, also known as Vardor. The Nordic coven is unique compared to all other vampire covens because they don't answer to the council. They're completely independent and don't take place in the vampire-Lycan war, well, until Celine and David showed up there. Some vampires in the Nordic coven undergo a special ritual that takes them to a place they call the Sacred World. This grants them super speed and the ability to read another's aura. I wonder why Amelia never underwent this process. Or maybe she did. Roughly 800 years later after the formation of these covens, Marcus, Victor, and Amelia are hunting down William. They discover an entire village that's been killed by the werewolves and they all begin to turn. It's a hard-fought battle as werewolves are much stronger than vampires, but they win and capture William. Marcus was under the impression that their plan was to capture William and try to help him. Victor has different plans though. As soon as William is captured, Victor's orders are that William be imprisoned for all time. Amelia sides with Victor, and Victor has an entire army on his side, so Marcus has no choice but to agree. This would be the beginning of Victor and Amelia undermining Marcus's rule as the first vampire. We see that when William was captured, all 3 elders were awake, but this wouldn't always be the case. At some point, the vampires would establish something they named the Chain. In order to avoid conflict, only one vampire elder would rule at a time, Meanwhile, the other two would hibernate. Each elder would rule for 100 years, then go back into hibernation. There has been some discrepancies in retconning with the timeline and hibernations, like I said, all three elders being awake when they caught William, but usually it is one elder ruling at a time. In the first movie, Amelia was the current ruling elder. The next to be awakened was Marcus, then Victor. The way this rotation started was Victor, Amelia, then Marcus. Each elder is awoken by the blood of the current ruling elder. This allows them to see everything the previous elder has done and any problems that have occurred. It's like downloading a quick summary of the past 100 years. Apparently, it takes a lot of skill to organize your memories properly for this ritual. In the first movie, Celine breaks the chain and awakens Victor ahead of Marcus. Since she was inexperienced with organizing her memories, this causes Victor to be overcome with rushes of unorganized and chaotic memories. It doesn't seem to be any danger to him, just annoying. The novelization of Underworld tells us two things about the hibernation process that we don't learn in the movie. The elders are actually hooked up to some kind of life support system in the coffins to feed them and keep them alive. In the movie, they look more like corpses that have just dried up, and there doesn't seem to be any life support system attached. In the book, it says they're able to enter this state of hibernation by fasting, aka not drinking blood for a long period of time. When an elder is awoken from their slumber, they're quite weak. It took Victor at least a few days to get back to full strength.
Absolution will be yours.
There was multiple reasons the chain was established. In the book, it gives 3 specific reasons. First, to allow the elders to have their much needed rest. 2, to avoid conflicts while ruling. Each elder would be able to rule for 100 years however they seen fit. The third and possibly most important reason that the chain was used was to keep Marcus from ever freeing his brother William. I'm not exactly sure how the chain stopped Marcus from trying to free his brother. Possibly Victor created the Vampire Council to limit Marcus's power, yet they would allow Victor to do whatever he wanted. Also, if the chain did go Victor, Amelia, then Marcus would never drink blood from Victor. Therefore, he would never learn his true intentions. As far as I know, Victor and Celine are the only people left alive that know the location of William's cell. So if Marcus was able to drink from Victor, he might be able to find out where his brother's locked away. And Victor doesn't want that. I guess the other way the chain could stop Marcus from finding his brother is he would only ever have 100 years at a time to do it. It's very likely that Amelia and Victor would have just killed Marcus and William, if not for Marcus's genius plan. Marcus told Victor that if he were to die, all in his bloodline would follow, which includes Victor. Therefore, Victor wanted to control Marcus, but also had to protect him. Anyway, you kinda get the picture that the 3 elders did not rule in perfect harmony. Victor and Amelia were always conspiring against Marcus to keep him under control and keep him from freeing his brother. That's why in the second movie, Evolution, when Marcus burns down the coven, one of the soldiers says, "Why would he burn down his own coven?" And Marcus's father, Alexander, says, "It was never his coven." So even Alexander knew his son was being taken advantage of. It's possible at some point Victor was planning to kill Amelia. In Rise of the Lycans, Victor says multiple times to Sonya, "When you're elder." Not if, but when. We know that Victor won't kill Marcus in fear of the vampire race dying, so that only leaves Amelia. Either that or Victor might have been planning to add a 4th elder to the chain. Finally, the last coven that Amelia would found would be the New World Coven, located in New York. It is presumed this coven was founded after settlers started coming to America, so around the 16th century. That would make this coven 400 to 500 years old, by far the newest. A lot of vampire media like to refer to Europe as the Old World and America as the New World. The New World Coven in New York is the only coven that we haven't seen yet. At some point before the 20th century, Amelia and a vampire Thomas formed a secret romance together. There was secret passages in the Eastern Coven known only to Amelia and Thomas. They probably used these passages to keep the relationship a secret. Sometime later, during the 20th century, Amelia became pregnant with a pure-blood vampire. This is David. The pregnant Amelia and Thomas went to the Nordic Coven for several months until the child was born. This also lets us know that vampire pregnancies work the same as human pregnancies. The reason they went to the Nordic Coven was to keep the relationship, and especially the child, a secret. They must have known that David being an heir to an elder would make him a target. Eventually, Victor was becoming suspicious about Amelia's whereabouts. He sent his sire, Samira, to the Nordic Coven to look for her. But by the time she arrived, Thomas had already taken their son back to the Eastern Coven and no one would be the wiser. Thomas told everyone, including his own son, that his mother was a random lowborn vampire. So David would grow up having no idea who his mother was. Before leaving the Nordic Coven, Amelia put some of her blood in small vials for David and the Council. This will come back later. The next time we would hear about or see Amelia would be in the first movie. She was residing in the New World Coven, but her time as ruler has come to an end, and Marcus is due to be awakened next in the chain. While on her way to the Old World Coven in Hungary, she is ambushed and killed by the Lycans. Lucian is planning to use Amelia's elder blood to try and transform himself into a hybrid. He thinks by combining elder vampire blood with Michael Corvin's blood, he can turn himself into a hybrid, which he never gets to try, so Amelia kind of died for nothing. We also never learned if that method would have actually worked. The two elders that were turned by Marcus are much stronger than normal vampires. It seems similar to other vampire series in that the further you get away from the progenitor, the weaker the vampires become. Celine was turned by Victor, so she's only one removed from the first vampire. That could be why, even in the first film, her abilities were so impressive. Most vampires are no match for a Lycan when it comes to one-on-one combat. That is, unless you're talking about Victor. He was able to easily kill one of the strongest and oldest of the Lycans, Rays, with his bare hands, and quite easily I might add. Also, the fact that Lucian wanted Elder Blood to try and turn himself into a hybrid is implying that Elder Blood has different properties. I think it can be assumed that Amelia would have been just as strong as Victor. The only reason she was killed was because they were ambushed by too many Lycans. The continuation of Amelia's story doesn't happen until Blood Wars. Thomas dies while helping Celine and his son escape from the Eastern Coven after Celine was framed for killing the new Death Dealer recruits. Thomas told them to go to the Nordic Coven, and this is when David finally learns who he is. When David arrives, everyone in the Nordic Coven knows who he is. I mean, this is where he was born. He just doesn't know it. The leader of the Coven, Vidar, says that when David's mother passed, it was a great loss, and the Coven mourned for an entire month. This is when Celine realizes that that honor is only reserved for Coven leaders and elders. His mother is Amelia. This news is so insane that David doesn't even believe it, and it even makes him a bit angry.
She abandoned her only son for the sake of her precious counsel.
Vidar gives David the small vial of blood that his mother left for him, and he walks outside the castle. When David finally drinks the blood, this allows him to see her blood memories and everything that happened. After seeing the memories through his mother's eyes, he immediately understands what she did and why. David then goes back to the Eastern Coven, which at this point has been taken over by Samira. He enters the council and claims he's the rightful heir. If we look back, Amelia was killed by Lycans, and the other two elders were killed by Celine. That means currently there is no elders, which means the vampires basically have no leader. Thomas is the last living true heir of an elder because Victor killed his daughter and Marcus had no children. Of course, Samira doesn't believe David, but he brought the other vials of his mother's blood and gives them to the council. After drinking, they confirm that David's claim is true. He's the last of the purebloods. Samira assumes that all the vampires will still obey her, but upon learning that David is the son of Amelia and the true heir, they throw her in jail.
I said, kill him.
No.
At the end of the film, Celine, Lena, and David are officially made elders by completing a ceremony that involves drinking blood. They kept the three elder rule, I see. I doubt they will continue the hibernation thing though. You could argue that Amelia was the most successful vampire elder. She founded 3 covens, and her legacy now lives on. Without Amelia establishing the Nordic Coven, saving David, and leaving the blood behind, David would not have been able to take over the Eastern Coven, and it's very possible they might have lost the war to the Lycans. I mean, without the Nordic Coven, Celine wouldn't have had her super speed ability that she used to defeat Marius.
What of Amelia?
That's my video on the 3rd vampire elder, Amelia. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I've made so many Underworld videos and covered the other elders, but never got around to dedicating a whole video to Amelia, and I think she deserves it, since her character is so cool, but we don't get to see much of her. I'm currently working on another video that's been asked for many times, so that should be out soon. Of course, if there's any movies, TV shows, or video games you want me to cover, please leave them in the comments below. It's thanks to all of you I've found so many films and series that I'd never heard of. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't. It helps out a lot and I really appreciate it. As always, an extra shout out to all my members for supporting the channel and to anyone that's been a member in the past. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.